I am grateful for this round 2 discussion because I was telling Jusuk last time that we had the one-on-one interview that even though we did do a podcast with you and Jusuk, I still felt like there was a lot of interesting points that I could have asked you guys about individually, and so I thought it warranted one-on-one conversations as well. And also in terms of Cambridge journey so far and the people that have been most impactful, I mean, both you and Jusuk, we're recording here. There's only 2 places that I've been recording. One is Global Startup Center, which is like free for foreigners, and then the other place is your office space, which you've very kindly opened up to me. And so I'm deeply appreciative of all the support that you have given kind of the Cambridge ecosystem. I can point some people to the prior conversation that we had in terms of your background and upbringing and so forth. But can you give just like a brief introduction for the people that maybe won't be watching that?
Yeah. Maybe for the ones who haven't watched the last episode.
Exactly. Yes.
No. So I'm Jay. I'm now 42 years old. I was born in '82. We like to give the year of birth, in Korea. I actually was born here in Korea, and then at the age of 7, with my family. So I have a younger sister as well. We immigrated to France, where I spent, I think, total 27 years of my life. So all my school years had been done in France. And after I graduated from a business school in France, I started my professional journey. I was in Hong Kong for 3 years, from 16 to 19, and then I came back to Korea in 2020, so just before the COVID. And I've been living here since then, running my business with my sister, who is also a partner in our business. So that's my background. I would say usually we say French Kyopo, or sometimes French born Korean, even if it's not completely true because I was born in Korea. But I would say that's what, in a very simplified version, would be the best way to describe my identity.
The last time we spoke with Jusuk, we did talk about childhood upbringing, exposure to Korean culture while you were in France. One thing I wanted to ask you about was from career perspective. After you had graduated from university, did you start your career working for Samsung in France? Was that your first full-time working experience?
Yeah. So I actually always had this willingness to try to be connected to Korea, but when you're young, without really knowing exactly what that could be, So, and naturally, you sort of are in the dynamic of trying to finish your studies. You're not so sure what you have to do. I didn't know exactly what I had to choose as a studies, and it was only my parents in the background. They were pushing me for sort of trying to have the most, how can I say, excellence course from an academic point of view. So they were pushing me first to get into this thing called Sciences Po. So in France, when you graduate, after your high school, you have a contest that is very hard, very difficult to get in, where you can go into those university specialized. It's called Sciences Po now. It has become, it's a big school, so they do a lot of different stuff. But that specific exam is very tough. You have to study during the whole summer, and then you go on an exam day and you write a 4 hours essay, and they evaluate you based on that. And if you go, it's a political science based, and usually you have a lot of people who end up being top journalists or in the political sphere. So I think my mom, who actually studied political science, and she was also very interested, she always has wished her son or her kids to go to Sciences Po, right? And so I was trying, but I failed, but the other option was to go for a business school, a graduate business school. But in France, you have a very specific thing that we call classe prépa. It's literally preparatory class. So after high school, same. There you are selected based on your grades during high school. And you get into a course that is very, very intense during 2 years. that prepares you for grandes écoles, so those like graduate big famous schools, entry exams. So for 2 years you it's almost the equivalent, I would like to say, from the Kosan, like the high school 3rd year, where it's like very, very intense. Well, I was not working so hard, but I was in that trajectory, and that's how I did 2 years of class préparatoire, and then I went into a Grande École de Commerce, so like business graduate school of Grenoble. It's the city where I grew up. And then I did 3 years of that, and the reason why I'm telling all this is because I've always kept this desire to start working like in something in relation with Korea, because like you kind of feel that your role and where you can be valuable is when you can connect like sort of the two cultures, languages, and all your know-how, from both cultures. And so very naively, I was like just targeting Korean companies that were already present in France. So Hyundai, LG, Samsung, Daewoo back then. So I was like targeting those companies to try to get like sort of internship. And what happened is, in my 3 business school years, you have different formats of internships that you have to do. So the first year you only do 2 years, right? And then the second year, I was doing this format where you go 1 week to school, 2 weeks to a company. 1 week to school, 2 weeks to a company. It's called alternance, so like it's coming from alternate. And so the school provides a program where you can mix professional experience with classes. And I took that program, and I already applied for sort of an internship or like alterning internship at all those companies, but I've never been contacted, And what happened is I was like, I don't think those Korean companies are interested in my profile, and I was like trying to find other options. And the 3rd year of my business school, actually the HR director from Samsung, he called me and he asked me if I was still looking for an internship, because he kept my resume. He found my profile very interesting, the fact that I was Korean and that I was graduating from French business school.
Yes.
And so he thought that my profile could be interesting for the company. I still remember Amaury Détailleur is his name, and I was very grateful because he gave me that opportunity for an interview. And I came because they were not offering short internships, so that's why he was asking what was my like internship period and stuff like that. And I had to do a 6 months internship to finish my graduation. And so he said, you should come and you should meet like the people, the French and the Korean people who are working with, and do interviews and see if we can offer you an internship here. And I arrive and I get to meet like 5-6 people, from the French directors to the Korean expats who were there.
Wow. And
I think the interviews went well. And next thing, I was like doing my 6 months internship at Samsung in the IT business. So I was in charge of laptops. So Samsung back then, now I'm not so sure they're still selling laptops in the European market because they removed the business. But back in the days, I was in charge of product management for the category of laptops. And so I get injected into this Samsung France environment. I joined the company, we were 120, 125. I left, we were more than 500. So I was like really seeing from the inside the transformation of Samsung Electronics in their journey to become number 1 almost in all sectors in the French market, except the products that I was working on. So TV were performing so well, mobile phones were like, incredible, and the IT business was a little bit more difficult. But yet, I learned so many things, in Samsung. At the end of the day, I didn't find it was a suitable place for me in the long run. That's the reason why I made other choices.
Yes.
But I have to recognize that the learning curve was amazing, especially in that transformation from 100 people to 500, where you start to become like like a proper big company.
Yes.
Yeah. So it was very insightful for me. Yeah.
Wow. If I remember correctly from the last Cambridge podcast that we did with Jusok, you had said that your parents had gone to France for their studies, but also because there was some like tumultuous period here in Korea as well. In terms of when you were in high school and when you were in college, the extent to which your friend group, your social group, was other Koreans living in France, was that like quite common? Because I'm also wondering in terms of your entry level experience at Samsung, in terms of how much of a culture shock it was for you, or if it was like comfortable because you had already been within Korean communities in France.
Yeah. No, I didn't grow up inside the Korean community. I mean, the Korean community where I grew up, first it was not Paris, it was Grenoble, so it's a small city. And so you didn't like just have a lot of Koreans. You had like a few coming for language, learning. And then you had a few families like my parents. Usually it was families where the father was a professor at the university, and in Korea you can take like sort of 1 year where you are paid and you have to study something abroad. So they would choose to move with all the family, and they have to publish like sort of something, but they are still getting paid by the university as a research purpose. So we had a lot of families that were coming like for 1 year, maybe staying a little bit longer, but families who would like just settle down like us and actually like live in the long run. I didn't have many, so I ended up, to be honest, growing up really without having any Korean friend until the age of until I moved to Paris actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I had in my childhood, I had a period of time where I had like all sort of friends, and somehow at the age of 18 or so, I started actually to have more Asian friends, almost as a way of I want to reconnect with my Korean roots, but because there is no Koreans, I will connect with my Asian friends, sort of like, I mean, I'm guessing this is like maybe the dynamic that was in my mind back then, and I ended up spending like 2-3 last years when I lived in Grenoble, surrounded a lot by Vietnamese, Laotian, Cambodian friends. So I was very connected to the Asian community there.
So when you were working for Samsung, you were in Paris then, right?
Yes.
And you were working at Samsung for, was it like 3 or 4 years?
6 years.
6 years.
Yeah.
And was there any your understanding of how, like, I guess there is a perception of one of the hard things, Korean diaspora coming to Korea, wanting to live here. Usually they have to figure out work situation wise what they're going to do.
Yeah.
So it's either they're doing their own thing, they're doing freelance remote work, or they have to like work for maybe a more Korean company. And usually that's where it's like, this is too tricky. This cultural gap is too big to jump. The understanding of like, let's say Korean work culture and the extent to which like the satellite branches that Samsung had around the world kind of inherited that culture. I'm just curious from your experience perspective how it was and how much you knew what you were getting yourself into to some extent when you started your career there.
To be honest, I didn't know anything when I started because I was just like, in a way, very naive and very motivated by the fact that I could join a Korean company in France, where I could just shine and contribute and see myself evolve in that structure and stuff like that. But because I didn't know first, I think outside the fact that it's a Korean company or not, just the world of corporate culture, you are not so aware of the implications and the ins and outs when you just graduate. You're just excited to get work, to start to work. You wear a suit every day, you're packed in the metro, you go to work, and so you're just excited about it and you want to do a lot. The reality in Samsung France is that it's a very mixed culture because obviously it's a Korean company, it's a branch, but the majority of the organization is French. Because you're doing business in France. So you have like people to coordinate, and the president was Korean. But the majority of your colleagues and the people you work with, everything is French, you know. So I wouldn't say initially I had a big culture shock, because it was at the surface more like joining any other French company. All your colleagues, the guy who is sitting next to me, the guys I'm doing meetings, my boss, everyone is French. You know? Where it became a little bit trickier is that with my Korean-French identity, you start also to have a dynamic where you are a little bit in between the Koreans who come from Korea and the French organization, just by the nature of their roles. Because the coordinators, the business managers, we call them, from Korea, are here to report the activity to the headquarters, and also to sort of make sure that the directions of the headquarters is applied, right? So their role naturally comes sometimes a little bit in opposition to what the local teams want to do, because the local teams think that has to be done in a certain way, but the headquarters wants to do things in a global way, like for example, just making sure that we are all using the same system in the same way for supply chain management, for example. And so their role is to make sure to impose that in the local market. So what happens is naturally you have French and Korean opposition that starts to be created just by the nature of how the business is structured and organized.
Yes.
And so you start to have like a Korean team versus a French team in a way, in a very caricatural way.
Yes.
And you are there in between because you understand both, right? And so now the question is, are you able to make this an advantage, or are you not really able to make this an advantage and you feel uncomfortable about this situation? You know? And I guess in my situation, I just felt a little bit uncomfortable because I was not understanding why we cannot work together. And instead of that double culture becoming like sort of an asset,
yes,
it sort of became a thing where I felt uncomfortable because some of the French people think I'm too close to the Koreans, and the Koreans themselves think he's a sort of a French guy.
Yes.
So you find yourself in between, and it was one of the things that made me a little bit unhappy in the company.
Wow.
Just cultural thing.
Yes.
But the general atmosphere, I mean, all the people who are working there are French. So I wouldn't say that you could feel in Samsung France such a big push of the Korean culture top down at every layer of the organization. It wouldn't be true to say that. So I didn't really have a culture shock based on the Korean corporate culture. I had difficulty to adapt and to navigate in between that specific situation, Korean people, French people in the organization. That was a little bit tricky for me, I would say.
I feel like oftentimes from Western perspective, looking at maybe just Asian work culture in general, like it seems consistent for both Japan and Korea in terms of maybe the critical view from Western perspective is like it's too bureaucratic or it's too top down, right? There's not enough like free flowing information back and forth. There's a lot of things you can say about critiquing that type of culture, but I'm also curious in terms of what you are most maybe impressed by, or where you think maybe that kind of structure becomes very advantageous for Korean businesses, because there is maybe some critique somebody can make of saying the companies and the culture in Korea, they need to be kind of rebuilt from the ground up. Right? But maybe in the process of taking that type of culture away, you forego or you give up some very powerful assets that type of culture brings as well. So I'm curious in terms of like, from your experience, both interacting with other Korean businesses and then having worked for a company like Samsung, in terms of the strengths that you see from those types of cultures, are there some specific things that you admire or look at as very valuable?
Yeah, I mean, you have to recognize that those Korean global companies are performing well, around the world. So there are ingredients of success and things that are working well. I was always very impressed inside Samsung by the willingness to systemize things, But I think it also comes from the nature of Samsung. I could feel while I was working there that it's a manufacturing-based company. So if you take, for example, Apple, which was always like a strong competitor where, you know, was very difficult to like sort of follow. Apple, I think, for example, they start to imagine what would be the experience for a customer, and they develop a product that is adapted to their to the needs and aspirations, and like, and I think I could feel that Samsung historically has always been like producing products. So everything starts from the production, you know. So it's technical innovation, it's a little bit more memory space, a little bit more quicker processor and whatnot, you know.
Yes.
Better memory, better LED screen, and that was always like, you know, what was the driving force of Samsung, I could feel. And because of that, the way the business is organized, they focus a lot on having system where everyone can sort of, for example, input what we call forecast. Because what we don't imagine is for me to sell a laptop here in the French market in April has to be produced. Yeah, so it involves like a factory that is on the other side of the world that has to produce laptops for all regions, right? And so maybe the Germans will want like 16 gig of memory, while I think 8 gig is okay for the French market. And so that planning, what we call the supply chain management,
yes,
because it's a manufacturing company, was incredibly advanced. So we had the supply chain managers, they had to input forecast numbers 8 weeks, 12 weeks in advance, so that we have guarantee that we can secure laptop quantities coming to the shelves of our distributors, basically, you know. So that capacity of creating internal systems to follow and monitor that, to connect the sales office to the manufacturing factories and so on.
Yes.
I think that was quite impressive. And over, you know, Samsung, in their group, they have a company called SDS. I think it's Samsung Digital System, and it's a company that is solely working on developing information system and IT structure for Samsung and other companies. And I think you have quite a lot of people, so they develop their own software to run their business. So that's also, on paper and theoretically, is also, I guess, what makes the strength of trying to have a functioning that is global, and trying to like sort of in a way a little bit top down to make sure that everyone works in the same way, you know. So that in a way is a strength, where I felt that also at some point becomes a little bit how can I say, a difficulty, is that you need to be able to combine that with also the local culture, you know. And because at the end of the day, at the end of the chain, the people who are working also needs to buy into, you know, your process, to understand, you know?
Yes.
And I think that part was not maybe always well done, you know, always well done. And sometimes systems are imagined and they become not being very user friendly, for example. You know? So
yes.
I've seen examples of those, and I think that would be like, you know, in a nutshell, the things that I found very like you can feel there is a system and a structure that is so strong that makes the whole company work globally in a certain way, and that also is a solid structure and guarantees like how the company can, like, you know, keep growing and operating efficiently with so many offices in the world. Yeah, and then when you go a little bit more into the details in each local market, I think some more successful than others, but the ability to really adapt to the local culture and to make sure that this global policy and way to do is sort of well understood and adapted by the local offices. This is where sometimes I felt like it was a little bit more, oh, we have to do this way and we don't want to, like, you know, yeah, we don't want to know any other things. Yes. This is how it has to be done. And I think there is a lack of efficiency when you do that.
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
So, yeah.
Within maybe like Korean culture in general, I'm pretty amazed at, I guess how group dynamics can just be harmonious or become in sync, like in a very efficient way. And one just like anecdotal example is I went to my first baseball game in Korea, and like the crowds and the chants and like the cheers and like everybody's just in sync, and it's like kind of breathtaking, you know, because in the US, there's no way you'd be able to get people to do something like that in such a harmonious manner. And I feel like you see that kind of theme come up in many different areas of Korean culture as well, whether it's in like work setting or in politics or whatever. And that can be both kind of, as you said, it can either be an asset sometimes, or it can also be a detriment. I didn't think we were going to get too far into like working culture and your cross-cultural experience, but like because we're on the point, one thing I'm very curious about is you're wearing merch from your company Danim Group, right? And you run a company, and because I've been able to visit a few times for doing this podcast, it's pretty like incredible just seeing the working dynamic of you have like some employees that are more Korean, but maybe can understand or speak a little French. Then you have some like foreign French employees as well. I'm just maybe curious if you could explain to me what you've learned over the last few years, like managing a team, like cross-cultural team, having both like foreigner employees and like more Korean employees, trying to get them to work together. Could you just maybe like share some of your experience? I'm quite curious about
Absolutely. So, I mean, the reason why we have such a diverse, like, you know, types of people working for our company is just linked to the nature of our business. Because what we do is essentially to help our international clients who are everywhere in the world to execute projects in Korea, you know. So by nature, if you want to be able to do this job, you or the company has to be structured in a way where you have people who understand and speaks the client's language, culturally, not only like the language, but culturally. And you also need to have people who have a good understanding and expertise here locally to make sure that what the client wants is being well executed, basically. So the nature of my business, we have to have people that feels those, like, you know, expertise somehow.
Yes.
So that's the reason why you have like fully foreign people, but those foreign people that were working here, they are French ladies and they are all married to a Korean person. So we have hired them not specifically from outside, but they were people who actually made a choice of life to live here and who could see in our company a possibility a little bit like I had initially when I was in France working for Samsung.
Yes.
To be able to have a link with their mother country and to feel like they have a role and value to bring. So that's the reason why we have a few French ladies in terms of nationality.
Yes.
But married to a Korean.
Yes.
And then we have another category which would fully belong to Cambridge. We have a bunch of like overseas born Korean, like with friends. He left now, but we had a guy who grew up in Vietnam and studied in France as well, so fully fluent in French, but moved back now to Vietnam because he had another, like, you know, entrepreneurial project. And we also have Korean people who are here also because they are the best to understand how things are done and things work here in Korea. So we work with a lot of different types of suppliers here, right? So you need to be able to talk to this ajashi of 50 years old who is going to create your booth for your clients. And you need to be able to work with that guy and to make sure that he delivers what you need, you know? And so that's the reason why we have different categories of people. But one thing I can say, and I think it's linked to the education. It's funny because me and my sister, we have a French upbringing, right? So we value, cherish, and we think it's important to give freedom, to give autonomy, and to give like a room and space for creativity, suggestion.
Yes.
And so we have a management type that is like in that way, you know, and we can see that the French or the overseas culture people,
Yes.
they are more comfortable. And I can see that some of our Korean employees, sometimes they are a little bit surprised.
Mhm.
Why do you want me to decide? Why do
Yes.
you want me? No, tell me what to do.
Yes.
So, but you have to deal with those, because it's not about being but that guy, you have to tell him everything that he has to do. You cannot think like this, because this guy, he didn't grow up like you.
Yes.
He grew up in a society where at school we didn't tell him to ask questions. We didn't tell him that his opinion is important.
Yeah.
He just had to learn to be able to get the good grade. So we always told him what to do. So you cannot ask him at an adult age and say, hey, make suggestions, be make a lot of propositions and stuff like that. So
Yes.
you have to understand that, and you have to manage them in a little bit different way, or give them positions where they can, strive. And also just get the context for them, and little by little, then they take part. When we do like those collective meetings, they don't speak about the Koreans usually.
Yes.
They just listen. And now, more and more, they are inclined, because I guess they feel now, also safe, and they can take part to the discussions, to the brainstorming. So initially, when we do brainstorming, the Koreans do not talk. And then you have on the other side French people who talk too much as well. We don't need all of your ideas. So it's a different way of managing. But the important thing for us is what culture we want to push for our company, and then how we sort of follow up with the ones for them to catch up a little bit with our corporate culture. If we believe that's right, I think we push in that direction. That's what we do.
Wow. And from a language perspective, in terms of how you guys manage teams, is it like English first? Is it French first? Is it Korean first? Or is it just all different depending on the team and the project?
Yeah, there is nothing first.
Yeah.
Because if you have an American client, you speak in English to him.
Right.
But he wants something that needs to be done by a Korean supplier. But then I have to work with this colleague, and this colleague, I'm used to speaking French. So in 5 minutes, I have to switch from English to French to Korean in a very natural way, And I guess that's the identity of our company. Even me, I realized I'm switching those 3 languages, French, English, and Korean, in a very random way, Now I'm comfortable with it because it's my daily, life. But I know that when friends come, for example, to the office and they see the dynamic, and they say, but they were speaking French here, oh, they speak Korean here, and now there is a call and you speak in English here. So they get quite surprised that in a small company like this, we have to juggle with this a lot. But for us, it's just very natural.
We were talking a little bit about the extent to which you were exposed to Korean community in France. How about in reverse, like now your life here and what you've seen over the last 5-10 years? The French Korean community in Seoul. Obviously, because you're running this business, you have quite a deep network, and I know that you're involved as a leader within various communities. Are there a lot of gatherings, your friend groups and other friend groups you see that have some Korea-France cross-border kind of background? Is that community quite tight-knit here in Korea, or how is it then?
Yeah, I think French Koreans, we have a question of number. We are not really enough to sort of be seen as a community, as a real community. And in the same time, you could have small community, but there is not so many initiatives that gather those profiles of people. If anything, I think the French community overall is very active and dynamic and have experienced. So French community meaning including the French people who live here, and not only the Korean French. And I think we Korean French are sort of integrated into that community. But Korean French, I do have a group of friends that I catch up on a regular basis, and I know some other younger guys and girls are here living here. but we don't have anything. It would be interesting to actually start gathering them as well, I think. But we don't have something proper for
Yes,
that.
yes. How about on like the influence of French culture on Korean culture? So one of the things that I've been maybe is a little bit surprising to me or just not expected is like if you look at maybe history between Germany and Korea of like many Korean migrants like Chuseok's parents going to Germany, and then there's these like pretty large Korean German communities in Germany, right? There I would expect some cultural feedback loop where there's a lot of German influence in Korea. With France, kind of like as you said, maybe population size wise, it's not nearly to the same extent, and yet you see like Paris baguette or you see like croissants being sold, and it seems like there's a lot of French influence on Korean culture. I'm wondering like what's the not necessarily a historical breakdown, but like why that exists, and also if there's similar like admiration from like French people about Korean culture as opposed to like Chinese, Japanese, other Asian cultures. I'm curious to hear your perspective on that.
I think I don't know about the like historical aspect of it and when it started and stuff, but I think it is true that Koreans have always associated France to luxury, to food, and I guess there has always been a fascination about the French language as well. So because I can also see, when I speak French, Koreans are a little bit more fascinated by that, rather than someone who speaks English, I guess, which is a little bit more common, right? And I'm thinking this also has maybe its root, because I know when my mom was at high school, she studied French. And my dad studied German, I think, and we spoke about it, right, with Chuseok. It's that as a second language, high school kids sometimes have to choose a second language, and women usually would go for French language, which has always a little bit more artistic, musical link, perception, fashion, And even as of today, you are talking about like the roots, but you have a lot of students who go for music, for art, for architecture, for fashion design, for bakery, for food, still in France to get educated and come back, So I guess there is an influence there, And I think, there is this like image of sophistication in the French, and it's driven, I guess, by all those luxury brands as well, and the language and its perception and how it sounds. And so I'm always fascinated to see like those shops as well. You mentioned Paris Baguette, Paris Croissant, but there are so many funny names of shops here and there in different areas where people just choose. Like you have like even fashion brands these days. I see a lot of Matin Kim.
Yes.
I guess Matin maybe is not because it means morning, so maybe it's his name. I don't know, but for me it sounds French, so it's funny. You have a cafe called Rendez-vous, so I think they mixed rendezvous and déjà vu, and but those are French words.
Yes.
I've seen Mardi Mercredi, which means Tuesday, Wednesday, and I see a lot of like brands, shops using French words, So there is this culture. Sometimes it's funny because some of my friends ask me, "Hey, what does that mean?" So they sometimes take a word really out of the context, and if it sounds good in the way it's pronounced in Korean, they would use it as a brand name, or So for me, I like it because I feel like it means that Koreans, are like sort of interested, fascinated by the French language, and they choose it. So I find it amusing, and I find it very, very nice, And I don't know the historical like background for this, but all I know is like the perception of the French language being that image, is real here in Korea.
And how about for yourself, like personally, from a language perspective, given that you can speak English, French, and Korean? Do you have preferences in terms of how you choose to express yourself in certain contexts? Like in a working context, or maybe like expressing your emotions, or if you're playing sports, do you have like a first like kind of home language, and then you toggle on and off other languages based on the context that you're in, or do you feel any difference? Because some people I've spoken to have said like I speak Korean and English, but when it comes to very personal or emotion things, they prefer one language over the other.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have French for me is my favorite language in terms of not the language that I like most, but emotions, when I have to express something deeper, when I have to articulate an idea. That's the most comfortable language for me, where I feel like what I'm delivering is the closest to what I want to say. So that would be French. And I think my knowledge also of the language in French enables me to like express things sometimes in a bit more artistic way or complex way. So that's French for sure. You know? English, for me, it's a language where I think I can express myself in English, but I can't say that I can speak English in a very like sophisticated way or very complex way. I get the message delivered and it works in the context of a business. I've never had trouble to use English in a business context. And I would say Korean, similar, minus the fact that my business Korean is very poor.
Sure.
So I get myself understood, and I'm very lucky because I run my own business, right? So I don't have to justify, I don't have other eyes, and even I don't care if someone thinks my Korean is not perfect. If you understand what I'm trying to say, that's fine for me. But if I was working in a company, I probably would be mocked in the way I express things in a business context, because it's not very formal. It's a lot of like written oral Korean. You know, the way I speak, I just like type it in with a lot of mistakes. Well, now I get fixed a little bit by ChatGPT.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, so my Korean is coming from discussions with my parents, discussions with my Korean friends, and everyday life here, right? Yeah. And then I have never been like properly educated in business Korean. So it means that I don't have that layer of making sentences that are proper, finishing the email in a proper way, you know. I just write it the way I want to say it orally.
Yes.
And again, I'm lucky because I don't speak from, I only engage my own company, my own brand. So if anyone wants to see me as a little bit not professional or not qualitative enough, it only implies me and my image, so that's fine. But if I was working in a company for someone, maybe my Korean would need to be improved. Yeah, I think so. So that's, yeah, and then English is just because I've been living here and there internationally, and I have been always using English as a like professional language. But my favorite language is French. Yeah.
It was like 7 or 8 years old when you moved from Korea to France, right? I feel like, kind of as you were saying, in terms of how Koreans perceive French language, as maybe there's something like exotic or like something very like luxurious about like hearing French. Is if I were to choose, just based on my own hearing of other languages, what the most difficult languages to like execute, not just from intellectual perspective, but from pronunciation perspective, it seems like it would be maybe French and like Chinese. When you first went to France at like 7 years old, like, do you remember how difficult it was at all for you to integrate into like pick up the language and all of that?
I think was lucky that I was so young that I didn't feel any difficulty about the language. I don't have any souvenirs of like having trouble to express myself when I was a kid, you know, because you just absorb like a sponge everything. I had a little bit more trouble because I had to sometimes, you know, fight with kids because they were mocking me because I was Asian, basically, you know. But except a few things like that, I didn't have much trouble about the learning of the language. And I think I'm very lucky because I was young, you know, 7 years old. So you just go into elementary school and you're just busy, trying to interact with your friends in a certain way. I don't remember which way, but I guess maybe we were not understanding each other, but that's fine as well.
Yes.
But I picked up quite quickly the language. It was funny because when I arrived in France, in elementary, first class, I couldn't speak French, so any thing that implied French language, I couldn't, I had zero, right? But any mathematics or anything that I could understand, I would always have the perfect grade. So I was in advance in terms of mathematics and stuff like that. So that's the reason why the teachers told my parents, we are not, usually when the language is a problem, we make the kid redo elementary class 1 just to make sure that he can catch up. But they said he would get too bored into all the rest, so it's better that we keep him going and then he can catch up with French quite quickly. So I didn't double my elementary class 1, called CP, class primaire. I don't know exactly what's the meaning of CP, but it's the first year in elementary school. So I joined in the middle of the year, and then I didn't do it again, and I just went with the other people my age, my generation. Yeah.
Wow.
And I don't have many memories of having difficulties, but just because I think you're very young and you're innocent and you don't care.
When I was interviewing Jusuk and preparing for that, I had realized that in terms of his professional experience in Asia, I didn't realize how vast it was. In terms of spending time in Japan, in India, in Hong Kong, in Singapore. For you, after you had basically finished your time at Samsung, right? You went to Hong Kong. And is that right? Did you go to Hong Kong or did you stay in France?
Yeah, I stayed in France and I did production business for, I think it was about 4 to 5 years before I moved to Hong Kong.
And the production business was your own business or you were working for a different company?
No, I was working with Hyun, so older brother, another Korean, who already created his company to do production service for global Korean brands when they wanted to shoot commercial films in Europe. So that's what I did for 4 or 5 years. Yeah.
Interesting. And what you're doing now, how long has it been since you had founded Danim Group and been working on in Korea?
So Danim itself had been founded in 2015. So before I came back by my sister and our third partner called Hoan, and I joined in 2020. So it's been about 5 years now that I'm fully involved into the business. Before that, I was not officially involved. I was just supporting my sister from outside. Yeah. But I joined officially in 2020, where I could actually be here and help the business.
And with the each successive kind of career move from being in France and then going to Hong Kong and then coming here, you always wanted to do something entrepreneurial, for yourself, run your own business. Was that always the hope or the goal after Samsung, or did you have many thoughts about what direction you wanted to take?
Yeah, I had many periods where I was trying to figure out what I wanted, to be honest. It was not I cannot say from the beginning I knew I wanted to be this entrepreneur. No. And I don't think it's a reality for a lot of people. But you have personalities, you have affinities, you have your own background. So, for example, my parents have always been, for my father, in the academic field, and my mom was not an entrepreneur as such, because it was not a business, but she kept creating projects, cultural projects in France, and then when she came back to Korea, also social projects. So for me, it's very close to entrepreneurship. It's just not that the structure was a company that was there to make money, but in the way she operated things, it was very entrepreneurial. So I think we get that background. So it was a long journey for me to be very excited to get into Samsung, and after 6 years, sort of realizing something was missing and I was unhappy about my situation. And after like trying to think about what could solve that sort of like unhappiness in a way, you know, I started to realize it's not Samsung, it's the company as a corporation, as any sort of business with its organization, where I felt like this would like just repeat my unhappiness, you know, to get into a sort of, you know, long organization where you have to fight to climb the ladder and stuff like that. This was just not for me, I felt, you know. So I started to really deeply think about what I can do differently. And that transition is that production experience, because there it was not my own business, it was my house business. I was working with him, but because it was a very small structure and because the typology of the business, because of production, it's almost creating a company for a few days, you know, so you have all the ingredients of hiring specific people for that job and coordinating so many different stuff. So it's like every day you create a new business and you run it, right? So that experience got me close to entrepreneurial experience and made me start realizing, yes, that's actually would make me happier. To be able to jump into subjects, to have that I'm interested in, and not just like, you know, when I was in Samsung, to be honest, I was feeling like every day I spent so many hours to try to sell laptops in the French market, in the IT distribution channel, speak to the same people, like, what am I doing here? I don't want to do this, you know, for my life. You know, I was so narrow-minded because of the structure of work. Because you're working in a company that is in a specific sector, you're taking care of a specific position, which is marketing, and only about one product. So it can only be limiting your mind, you know, I found. So I said, even if I move into another company and I start to sell a cell phone, same shit will happen. So I wanted to do something different, and I met this young. That was a good opportunity for me to really open the perspective, you know, for me. And I started to realize, what I want is not like working less, you know, it's just working on something more meaningful. It's just working with a sense of not repetition, but something new every time. It's like trying, I have to touch marketing, HR, sales, IT. I have to do everything for my own company, and I like this diversity of topic you can touch into. And so entrepreneurship for me, it's connected to that, you know. I've never worked so much since I'm an entrepreneur. So it's not about working less for sure, but everything you do, you know why you're doing it, you know, and what you do has a direct impact. So I guess that's what, you know, is the drive for me, and how I ended up like being an entrepreneur. But I spent a few very unhappy years in my last years at Samsung, just because I was not feeling comfortable in you know, what I was doing. Nothing to do with companies, good companies, but it's just you in the structure. Something is missing. I also had at some point this thought that if I one day have kids, and I say to my kids, you know, Dad has sold so many laptops. I don't know if it's very, like, you know, it's something that I would like to tell my kids. You know, I wanted to be able to tell them that I have spent time to identify what I really wanted, and I tried to get into that direction. I didn't like just stay scared in changing. I was taking risks. I was trying to set up the life that I wanted to, in a way, and like I feel way more proud to be able to explain my journey to a kid, if I have one someday, than when I was like, you know, working just for a company. And that's just my personal, like, you know, internal dynamic, I would say. Everyone is different, but for me it was it was that.
Well, speaking of your entrepreneurial journey and the influence that maybe your mom had in terms of her just always starting new projects and you wanting to prioritize working on things that you found interesting, can we talk a little bit about Leo FC and you starting that, running that? How long has it been? Can you just share what it is and why you started it?
So Leo FC, it's my passion project. It's a football team. Yeah, I don't like to use soccer, but I will because I think there are many Korean Americans. Or
No, the footballers will outnumber the soccer.
Just kidding. It's always like that little joke we do. You know?
Yes.
So it's a football team that I created in, I think now 2022. So it was roughly 2 years after coming back to Korea. And the idea came to me because I already had created, football has always been a passion for me. So to give you the background, I really wanted, my dream was to become a football professional player. And I played at good level when I was in my young years without being able to end up being a professional. Because it's a very, very, especially in France, you have so much talented players.
Yes.
But I was fighting for it in my young age. And then after when I decided I should focus more on studies, on business and stuff, I always kept football as a passion project. So when I was in Paris, I already started a Korean team in Paris. And we were going to play into a French amateur league. And so we were the Korean team. We were called Red Devils FC because Brugenanma is the national
yes.
team. And so we had that identity. We were wearing like the Korean, national jersey, and so we were seen as the Korean team, And we were playing against Latino teams, against corporate teams, against all sort of amateur teams, and it was an incredible journey. And I always had this idea to use my passion as a vector.
Yes.
For exchanges and getting to know more people, because we just play football together. So that was a little bit the idea, and I did it already in France. So when I came back here in Korea, I started to just go and look for what was existing in terms of football system and structure. The reality of Korean amateur football is that it's not very structured yet. It's getting there more and more, but it's not there yet. So on the one hand, you have the really traditional amateur teams where you have kids to grandfathers all playing together,
yes.
drinking makgeolli at one time from 6 a.m. to 12 p.m. And this is mixed. And now in each coup, for example, you still have those tournaments where you have age gaps. So 20, 30 years old, we play a tournament. Between 40 and 50, you will play another tournament. And so that's the very traditional structure of Korean football. On the other hand, you have an expat league here called Saturday League and Sunday League. I think Sunday League doesn't exist anymore, but Saturday League is still here. And it's foreigners willing to play football. They have different teams, and they gather, and there is a league. There is one. So initially, when I came in, I created a team just with friends around me, and we got into the Saturday League. And I started to see that there are many different teams. There are good players, foreigner good players here and there. But to be honest, in my opinion, the way the Saturday League is organized is limited because you are in a sort of excluded system, self-sustaining system with only foreigner team. So you don't really have an occasion to be in the Korean system, basically, right?
Yes.
And so my idea was to, I'll do the same. I'll use football as a way of connecting those foreigner players to the Korean system. So I would make a team which identity will be an international team, which is Leo FC today. And I will go and play into those amateur official Korean league.
Wow.
So that's what I did. So in 2022, I gathered again various players that I found good and interested into the project, because we also didn't want to be just another international team. We wanted to be a team with discipline, with a mindset, a competitive mindset.
Yes.
Where we are looking also for results, and where we take football seriously.
Yeah.
Even if we are not professional, it doesn't prevent us of trying to be professional minded.
Yes.
Right? And so that was the whole idea. So I gathered a bunch of good players, and we got into the Korean system. And the Korean system in amateur football has 3 leagues, K5, K6, K7. So we started into the K7 league, and we were playing in that division. And now we are gotten up and we are in the K6 division. Yeah. And our ambition is to try to get to K5, which would be in amateur football the highest level we can reach. Yeah.
And is there any way to get further than that after you're at K5, or you have to go through a whole different process?
Yeah, I mean, I think the federation is trying to make it possible, but you have an entry barrier because you need to have a budget. As soon as you go into K4, you need to be able to have a budget. You need a certain number of players that have professional contracts. I think you need sort of like facilities. You need to be backed up either by a city or by a big corporation to be able to run an annual budget, to be eligible to compete in K4, and it becomes like something very different because K5, for example, in Seoul, you have many K5 divisions, but K5 has 8 teams. So it's like sort of league between 8 teams that will play against each other, their home and away games. Yeah. So that's already a little bit structured, but it's only 14 games a season, right? And I think as soon as you go to K4, like the leagues are like the whole season you play every week, you know, games. So it's a whole other system. So you need to be able to sustain that. Yeah. But they are trying to create links now because even in K5 now you have clubs with ambition who are starting to get structured, who are supported by like you know those districts or like municipalities and who are gathering like good players who are training every day and I think who aspire to go in higher division and to try to be there, you know. So yeah, there is a whole like layering system, and we are there in the K6. We have like, I think we have over 50 nationalities. You know, we have like Algerian players, Cameroonese, French, Irish, English, Argentinian, South African, Nepalese. We had a Japanese. Now he has gone back to Japan. Yeah, we have so many, and a few Koreans as well, yeah, of course.
Wow.
So we have so many nationalities. So it's an interesting team. Yeah.
How often do you guys practice? And are you your owner, coach, player as well? Like, to what extent are you involved?
Yeah, I was everything.
Yeah.
I was like owner, coach, player. Yeah. I did that for 3 years. Yeah. And it became for me a little bit difficult to juggle my business with that because we created in 2022 and because of COVID we didn't have a lot of business, so I could get involved a lot more into this. But since like last year I felt it was difficult for me to fulfill a proper coaching role. I still play. I'm old, but I still play. I can still contribute to the team a little bit. But we have decided this year to give the coaching role to someone else. So now we have an ex-pro Korean player.
Wow.
Who is a bit older than me. So he's in his 50s, and he was interested in like you know joining the team and to like sort of transmit his knowledge to the team. So he used to play like professional level. K League here in Korea in his career, and now he's like just doing business with football, and he's helping us and he's coaching us. Yeah.
Wow!
So we get a lot of like learning from him. I'm still here as a like sort of a general manager, so I help the coach in his mission, and I help just the club to get like you know managed in a proper way. It's not a perfect organization, but for an amateur team, we are well structured and it's working relatively well. Even if amateur sports, you always have a lot of frustrations, you know, when you run, because not everyone can come all the time, so you never have the same team from one game to the other, because of work, because of family obligations. And so the performance of your team can be very impacted by who's here, who's not here, you know. So, I mean, you have to deal with it. You also have to face frustration because I feel like the younger generations just have less passion for football. You know, for me, when I was growing up, it was football and it was everything in my life. You know, and nothing could like replace football. Now I feel like guys have so many other things to do. You know? And so they like football, so they come, but they don't really know how to be part of a club, to contribute, to that community.
Yes.
They just come and get what they want, sort of. So we have also this phenomenon, which is not always easy to manage,
Yes.
because for an amateur club to function based on volunteering,
Yep.
you have to have volunteers.
Yes.
You have to have, yeah. So we have a great guy called Andy, who is, if you go to our Instagram, it looks very professional, you'll see. And it's a graphic designer, also a player of the team,
Yep.
who is putting so much effort and energy to trying to have our Instagram page look very
It looks very good.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's thanks to him. And then you have other people just contributing to get the team going.
Yep.
Yeah. And we want to keep that identity of being a platform for international players, because you have a few, You have a few who come to Korea for some reason,
Yep.
and they have a background in playing football. Yeah? And some are married to a Korean lady, they live here, so they coach football or they teach English, and they have a proper football level, and there was nothing for them, basically. So that's what we wanted to create. Yeah. Here you can play competitive football, it's exciting, it's a league, we play to official competitions, you have referees, you go in the pitch in Champions League, and so it's just very fun to enjoy football in a proper way.
It's pretty amazing that you've done it on both sides. In France, having a team for people of Korean heritage, and then now in Korea, having a team of foreigners, different multicultural backgrounds. That's pretty amazing. And I didn't tell you this before, but it was a week, 2 weeks ago, I had a conversation with Jo, and she is from Hong Kong, and then she came to Korea, and then she was telling me that she had participated in, I guess maybe the women's club of the OFC, and that she had crossed paths with you. And then she was telling me she really, enjoyed being a part of that. So I didn't even realize you guys have a women's team as well.
Yes, so we created this year. So I get less involved in there because we have girls that are doing a fantastic job, and we want to sort of leave it for them to grow it in their own speed, because women's football is a real phenomenon here in Korea. We have TV shows that were showcasing celebrities into a sort of TV program with football, where you have legend coaches coaching singers, actors, teams, and into a football competition, and that got a lot of attraction.
Yep.
And in the process of also young ladies trying to find new sports, something they would be interested in, I think football has picked up quite well. So we actually have quite a number. Sometimes yesterday, for example, I was at training, and girls were more numerous than guys.
Wow.
At training. Yeah. And they are very interested, and it's fun to see how they are, growing the club. And the only thing that we wanted, me and my partner, the president of the club, we wanted to keep the same identity in terms of club, very international. Okay, so if you are international background person, doesn't matter your ethnicity, but more in terms of culture, background, come to our club and you can be part of it. Women team and men's team have a little bit of different vibe because we are just not at the same point in the journey. They are starting, so they are still have a lot of different levels involved. So it will take a little bit of time for them also to get structured and to get into a proper way of functioning. But this season they will be taking part to this Seoul League, amateur Seoul League. We are a little bit more advanced, so we don't take in anyone just because he wants to be here. He has to be a good footballer, he has to be in the right mindset, he has to be able to commit to the project, and so it's slightly different, but we are under the same umbrella because it's still the OFC women's team.
Yes. Well, it's very cool for me to just randomly be meeting people and hearing their involvement and enthusiasm for the club. And we should wrap up here soon because I know we're going to be getting on on time. But even before the conversation, I think he was like, we had the initial conversation. What more are we going to talk about? But I feel like there's so much more, whether it's projects, interests, your personal experiences, that a lot more interesting stuff to talk about. And my hope is that through 2025, with new projects or developments or relationships between Chuseok, you, myself, there's many more fun conversations. So I'm very grateful that you were willing to make the time for one-on-one conversation and all your help with Cambridge ecosystem as well.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. As we discussed previously, I think Chuseok and I are just very excited to see that you are taking this subject and trying to grow it, and we want to support as much as we can. So small things like office space, but also like trying to get the word out there, discussing also business structure with you and how to give some sort of continuity to the project and how we can contribute. It's not only us giving, we are also receiving, I think, a lot from interacting with you, going to those events, meeting those new people.
Yes.
Also understanding, the dynamics of the Korean diaspora.
Yes.
And as I told you, even before we met and even before I started Bridges with Chuseok, I had so many ideas, and just I was brainstorming a lot about this Korean diaspora, which is very unique and which I believe really has a role to play. I like to say this, to connect Korea to the global world and vice versa, and to make sure that also Korea sometimes offer new perspectives to Korea in the way the society has to go, without saying that we know better than you, but hey, in France this is not working well, but this is also working well. You might want to have a look at their experience and to see what's good for us. This type of conversation we would like to get involved, and and I think it's the journey that you're taking on. So yes.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm always trying to position myself around people that have energy, enthusiasm, curiosities about the world, new projects that they want to take on. And so whenever we chat, it's very energizing. So thank you, sir.